To summon a dead religion from its forgotten grave and to make it tell its story, would require an enchanter's wand. Other old faiths, of Egypt, Babylon, Greece, Rome, are known to us. But in their case liturgies, myths, theogonies, theologies, and the accessories of cult, remain to yield their report of the outward form of human belief and aspiration. How scanty, on the other hand, are the records of Celtic religion. For the Irish Celts there is a mass of written material found mainly in 11th and 12th century manuscript. Much of this is based on divine and heroic myths, and it also contains occasional notices of ritual. From Wales come documents like the Mabinogion, and strange poems the personages of which are ancient gods transformed, but which tell nothing of rite or cult. Valuable hints are furnished by early ecclesiastical documents, but more important is existing folk custom, which preserves so much of the old cult, though it has lost its meaning to those who now use it. Lastly, Celtic burial mounds and other remains yield their testimony to ancient belief and custom. From these sources we try to rebuild Celtic paganism, and to guess at its inner spirit, though we are working in the twilight on a heap of fragments. No Celt has left us a record of his faith and practice, and the unwritten poems of the Druids died with them. Yet from these fragments we see the Celt as the seeker after God, linking himself by strong ties to the unseen, and eager to conquer the unknown by religious rite or magic art. Pliny thought that the name Druid was a Greek appellation derived from the Druidic cult of the oak. The word, however, is purely Celtic, and its meaning probably implies that, like the sorcerer and medicine man everywhere, the Druid was regarded as the knowing one. On the whole this agrees with what is met with in Ireland, where the Druids, though appearing in the texts mainly as magicians, were also priests and teachers. Later writers give the Druids a lofty place and speak vaguely of the Druidic philosophy and science. Caesar also refers to their science, but both he and Strabo speak of their human sacrifices. Suetonius describes their religion as cruel and savage, and Mela, who speaks of their learning, regards their human sacrifices as savagery. Pliny says nothing of the Druids as philosophers, but hints at their priestly functions, and connects them with magico-medical rites. These divergent opinions are difficult to account for. But as the Romans gained closer acquaintance with the Druids, they found less philosophy and more superstition among them. For their cruel rites and hostility to Rome, they sought to suppress them, but this they never would have done had the Druids been esoteric philosophers. Their astronomy was probably astrological, their knowledge of nature a series of cosmogonic myths and speculations. If a true Druidic philosophy and science had existed, it is strange that it is always mentioned vaguely, and that it exerted no influence upon the thought of the time. The Druids, like the priests of all religions, doubtless sought after such knowledge as was open to them, but this does not imply that they possessed a philosophy or a secret theology. Their ritual, as far as is known to us, differs but little from that of other barbarian folk, and it included human sacrifice and divination with the victim's body. The idea that the Druids taught a secret doctrine, monotheism, pantheism, or the like, is unsupported by evidence. Doubtless they communicated secrets to the initiated, as is done in barbaric mysteries everywhere, but these secrets consist of magic and mythic formula, and some teaching about the gods or about moral duties. These are kept secret, not because they are abstract doctrines, but because they would lose their value and because the gods would be angry if they were made too common. If the Druids taught religious and moral matters secretly, these were probably no more than an extension of the threefold maxim inculcated by them according to Diogenes Laertius, to worship the gods, to do no evil, and to exercise courage. Their political power must have been enhanced by their position as teachers, and it is safe to say that submission to their powers was inculcated by them. Both in Gaul and in Ireland they taught others than those who intended to become Druids. They taught immortality, believing that thus men would be roused to valor, buttressing patriotism with dogma. They also imparted many things regarding the stars and their motions, the extent of the universe and the earth, the nature of things, and the power and might of the immortal gods. In religious affairs the Druids were supreme, since they alone knew the gods and divinities of heaven. They superintended and arranged all rites and attended to public and private sacrifices, and no sacrifice was complete without the intervention of a druid. The dark and cruel rites of the Druids struck the Romans with horror, and they form a curious contrast to their alleged philosophy. They used divination and had regular formula of incantation as well as ritual acts by which they looked into the future. Before all matters of importance, especially before warlike expeditions, their advice was sought because they could scan the future. Name-giving and a species of baptism were performed by the Druids or on their initiative. In the burial rites, which in Ireland consisted of a lament, sacrifices, and raising a stone inscribed with ogams over the grave, Druids took part. The ogam inscription would also be of Druidic composition, and as no sacrifice was complete without the intervention of Druids, they must also have assisted at the lavish sacrifices which occurred at Celtic funerals. Still more important were the magical powers of the Druids, giving or withholding sunshine or rain, causing storms, making women and cattle fruitful, using spells, rhyming to death, exercising shape-shifting and invisibility, and producing a magic sleep, possibly hypnotic. Since the Gauls went to Britain to perfect themselves in Druidic science, it is possible that the insular Druids were more devoted to magic than those of Gaul, yet they were clear-sighted enough to use every means by which they might gain political power, and some of them may have been open to the influence of classical learning even before the Roman invasion. Since the Druids were an organized priesthood, with powers of teaching and of magic implicitly believed in by the folk, possessing the key of the other world, and dominating the whole field of religion, it is easy to see how much veneration must have been paid them. In Gaul the Roman power broke the sway of the Druids, aided perhaps by the spread of Christianity, but it was Christianity alone which eradicated them in Ireland and in Britain.